Welcome everyone to the very first session of 2021 from the Light Center. We are going to be working in this session with with giving you ideas on how to embrace the syllabus and how activities that you can do with your students so as for them to engage with the syllabus as well as foster discussions on this matter. For this, we have the pleasure to have as the facilitator today, Professor Mary Broding. She began her teaching career in 2005 and has been involved in higher education as a faculty member, program coordinator, and writing tutor ever since. And she most recently joined Westcliff University. She joined us just over a year ago. And she has recently accepted the assignment of faculty coordinator over our integrative studies general education curriculum, and she also serves as a member of the Light Center and a facilitator for new faculty orientation here at Westcliff. So you probably know her already. Dr. Broding earned her doctorate in curriculum, teaching, learning, and leadership from Northeastern University. So welcome everyone. Thank you, Professor Broding, for accepting our invitation to facilitate this webinar, and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. So, excuse me, today we're going to be talking about syllabus reconnaissance, first things first, and we'll find out what that's about in just a second. So, of course, this is our Light Center website. Visit it lots, please. In terms of the agenda for today, first, please be sure to put yourself on mute when you are not talking. It looks like all of you are doing that already, so I really appreciate that. First, we're going to discuss first class difficulties, which is the whole reason for this, this presentation. We're going to talk about what syllabus reconnaissance is. We're going to model syllabus reconnaissance and then have a discussion about it. So you'll actually be partaking in a syllabus reconnaissance activity that I do with my students. But please keep in mind that this is just my style of doing it. There are many ways to do it, and you can take it as you see fit and modify it to fit your style and what works best for your students. And then of course, have time for any questions that you have at the end. Okay, so first let's discuss first class difficulties. By this, I mean the first class session for the term that you have with your class, where you're going over introductions and things like the syllabus. So first I want to ask you, and you can put your answers into the chat or you can just go ahead and speak out. Either way is fine. Do you cover the syllabus with your class on the first day? I'm seeing some emojis, those are cool too. Okay. So for the most part, yes. Good. Second question is, how do you cover the syllabus with your class on the first day? And you can either put this in the chat or speak out. Either is fine again. Okay, so I'm seeing Professor Sorensen, yes, but I make a pre-class syllabus activity, and I am interested in hearing more about that later. Professor Doe, going over the main portion of the syllabus. Professor Lipo, main points. Excuse me, my allergies are running rampant in the morning. Professor Nelson, pulling the document up and going through it. Professor Constant, it varies, even a 3-2-1 strategy can be interesting. Also want to know more about that. Professor Hirakawa, relatively focusing on assignments, and Professor Daly, assignments. Okay, so it looks like a few of you are doing a specific syllabus activity with the class, or you're honing in on specific parts of the syllabus that you feel are most important for your students. Okay, next question. Do you find this technique engaging for yourself and your students? Why or why not? So again, answer in the chat or you can speak up if you would like to. And I promise I will stop question you
I
very
think that
shortly.
I think
Go
that
ahead, Professor Nelson.
it's an engaging opportunity to speak out with the students. Rather, sometimes there's the monotony when students are, you know, in their first week, they're going over some of the same, whether it's a learning outcome or when things are due. It's when we get into the details, those finite details of where things speak to the specifics of the course. So if there's an upcoming assignment, if there are some differences in the way you're looking at things or the way you're making suggestions, that's when you see the sparked interest coming out of the students and them having that opportunity to, you know, okay, ask some questions. Whether it just so happens if we just go over it and we have a lot of things going on, it may just gloss over. And then I always try to make sure at the end, especially those first few weeks, do you have any questions, and kind of hang on so that there can be some clarification.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. And this activity will show you how to channel that a little more, or you can just, if you're doing what I'm going to show you already, then fantastic. In terms of the chat, Professor Daly says not particularly engaging. Professor Sorensen says going over the syllabus in class is not engaging in my experience. They forget everything I said about it anyway. And thank you, Professor Sorensen, for basically handing me a great way to segue into this, because that's one of the main reasons, is because the students oftentimes just forget. And that was my experience in all of my I don't want to say more graduate courses, but definitely undergraduate was the first day was going over the syllabus, and it was just like, oh, I know this is a day that I can just shut my brain off, because, if I really care about what's in the syllabus, I'll go read it. But very often at times I just didn't. And then Professor Lipo says in later weeks it is engaging. Okay. Great. Okay, so next question. How often do your students ask you questions about the syllabus in subsequent weeks after that first introduction to it in the first week of the class? And you can answer again, either way is fine. Professor Sorensen, never.
Never. Professor Nelson says that he feels throughout the course referring back to the document ongoing. So yeah, throughout the whole course.
Again, I do understand that each course probably has there's differences in them, so I can't speak for all of them, of course. But depending on what we're focusing on, if there's something that's vital that we're speaking to, then we're referring back to it. So I don't want it to be something that, we just leave it alone and it's gone. It's there for a reason. From grading criteria to questions about the assignment. So I feel like it's back and forth.
Professor Liebab says that he actually asks questions about the syllabus every week. He reviews 2 weeks ahead each week.
And then Professor Doe says they usually ask me about my expectations on the assignments that aren't clear in the syllabus. Okay, great. And then hang on here. Professor Hirakawa says every week only for the assignments and grading criteria. And I think it's awesome that you guys are going back to the syllabus. I think that is really important. That's something I try to do when I'm reviewing the assignments, as we go back to the syllabus. And I think that models for students, to go and get in the practice of looking at it, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Whoops, was that it? All right, okay. So now we're going to talk about what a syllabus reconnaissance is. So a syllabus reconnaissance is a technique in which students look at the syllabus and identify key information and questions that they have. And this is really a student guided activity versus the instructor guiding them through the syllabus. Students engage with the syllabus as opposed to having the instructor simply read the syllabus to them, and basically what I already said. And lastly, instructors can elaborate on key information and answer questions students identify about the syllabus. So this is really a guided activity in terms of students coming away with key points and questions that they have, instead of just the instructor opening it up and saying, okay, we've gone over it. What kind of questions do you guys have? This is part of the student activity, is coming up with questions, and it really excuse me, forces them to think about, okay, what type of questions do I have as I'm going through the syllabus? Okay, so now we are going to do a syllabus reconnaissance activity with a syllabus that I am teaching right now. So in terms of this, I am going to give you the link to the syllabus, and I want you to spend, typically I give students 10 to 15 minutes to review it. However, if you guys are quicker, then that is totally fine. So I'm going to walk through the steps, and then I will give you access to the syllabus through a shared link, and then also the Jamboard, where you're going to be posting your takeaways about the syllabus and your questions. So once I give you the link, you'll spend 10 to 15 minutes reviewing the syllabus, but I will be monitoring the Jamboard to kind of like gauge where you guys are at. And then you're going to identify 3 important takeaways on the first slide of the Jamboard, and I will show you that in a second and how to post your takeaways before I give you access to the syllabus link. And then you are going to identify any, that's really great that I left this out. So let me just fix this real quick. Any questions that you have about the syllabus on the second slide of the Jamboard? And I do that in class. If I find an error, I'll just go in, like, fix it real quick. So you'll be identifying any questions that you have on the second slide of the Jamboard. And then lastly, we're going to discuss your takeaways and questions. So I will call on each person to read their takeaways, and then we'll discuss those, and then each person will ask their question. And then I will answer the question. Depending on how we're doing on time, how detailed we get into that, because I also want to include time for reflection and open up the floor for suggestions about, how you guys think that you could do this for your class and really individualize it for your own class and the tools that you use. Okay, so one second, let me hop over to the Jamboard, and I'm going to go ahead and share this link with you guys as well. If you haven't used Jamboard, it's super easy to use. You can find it in your Gmail account through Westcliff. Just make sure that you are logged into your Westcliff Gmail account. And then it's super easy to just go ahead and log in. And basically it is virtual sticky notes, and they're really colorful and I like that. It also makes it a really easy way for people to just throw down some ideas and have a quick discussion. So you go over here to the little sticky note thing, and you can just write your thing on there and click save. And I'm going to go ahead and just put 3 takeaways for this slide. And if you want to add another slide or a page, whatever you want to call it, I'm sorry, they call it a frame. You just go to the right arrow here and you click another one. And then I'm going to put a sticky note here as well. This is where you're going to post your questions. Any questions on using the Jamboard, or anyone having trouble accessing it so far? Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share the link to the syllabus with you guys. Again, this is one that I'm using right now for class that I'm teaching, and also a section I'm co-teaching with Professor Constant, which has been just a lot of fun. So let me, I need to open it in Google Docs real quick. So just one sec here, I'm going to stop sharing, and then I will share that link with you guys. And then you can have access to it and get looking for those 3 takeaways and your questions and posting those on the Jamboard. Additionally, if anyone gets logged out of Zoom and comes back, or gets logged in after I've already shared the link, if you could please let me know so I can reshare it in the chat, because that seems to be the trend. Is if you're not active in the class, in the Zoom session, if there's a link that's been posted in the chat, you can't see it if you've joined late or you got kicked out because of internet fun and have to come back to it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share the link in the chat. Also, make sure that you are logged into your Westcliff Gmail account to be able to access this. So here is the shared link for the syllabus. So go ahead and open that up, and I am going to share my screen with the instructions, and then I will hop over to the Jamboard in a little bit to kind of monitor how you guys are doing. And again, please let me know any questions that you have as we're going through this. Oh, one sec. Let me check on that. If you want me to check, if you are on the Jamboard, just send me a chat message and I can check. And if anyone needs me to go back to the instruction slide, just let me know as well, and I can do that for you. Yes, you guys are pretending that you are the students. Oh, thank you, Professor Lipo. Yeah, make sure you open up the syllabus in Google Docs, otherwise the formatting appears wrong. The fun of Word and Google merging together. And I love seeing the fun with the Jamboard is I like seeing the students like have their little comments pop up. Also, I forgot to tell you, make sure you put your name next to your 3 takeaways and your question so I can call on you and I know who is doing this. And a big part of doing that in class is just it makes it so much easier to like keep track of who's participating and you know, give them their rightly deserved participation points. Okay, so remember, if you have a question that goes on the second slide, so you can just hop over to this one and put it there. Also, make sure you put your initials, please, or your name either on the same sticky as the question or the sticky note or on a one next to it. So Dr. Nino, why don't you go ahead and just send me what you want to put on the sticky notes in the chat, and then I can go ahead and do that for you. And if anyone else is having a similar issue, you can just put your content that you want on one of the sticky notes in the chat, and then I can go ahead and put it on there for you, including your name. Okay, so I see 12 participants in here. So I'm going to be waiting for more of you to put your thoughts on the Jamboard before we move on. Yeah, that's a good point, Professor Sorensen. Usually like they go in like the same spot. For some reason, it just like auto-populates like right here, like where this, wow, this material is really creative and innovative, what rigor. So if you, so just make sure that you move your sticky note once it just goes there so that they don't get overlapped, because then I'll have to like move them myself. Again, if you have a question, make sure you put it on the second slide. Okay, so we'll take a few more minutes. Make sure you get your 3 takeaways on the first slide, and then any questions that you have on the second slide. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with the takeaways, and I'm going to call on people individually to go ahead and talk about theirs for us. And then if you're still putting information onto a slide, that is totally fine. You can go ahead and keep doing that. Okay, just one sec here. I'm adding to Dr. Nino's. Okay. All right, so JS, I believe that is Professor Sorensen. So why don't you talk us through your 3 takeaways first?
I couldn't find my unmute button, sorry. I have to go back, I don't remember what I wrote. Well, I feel like I was just being a little snarky because I've seen the syllabus so many times that I couldn't really think about it like a student. So it was an interesting exercise. I mean, besides my snark, in all seriousness, like given the changes in like everything is different. There's nothing that's repeated. I mean, there is a general repeated flow to each week, right? I mean, you read, you do an assignment, etc. But they have to actually read the syllabus to find out what the assignment is and what it requires of them. And I think that this is going to take a little bit of time for students to kind of break out of that, just that, routine that they've been in with, kind of the same assignment, different content each week. Because what I found is I would change things for my assignments and students wouldn't notice it because they didn't ever read the syllabus because they thought, oh, it's just like this other class. And so that was the kind of recurring issue that I had. So, which is why I started doing my syllabus activity. But yeah, I just think that this activity is going to be so much more important, especially like the following up each week with them, to kind of draw their attention to it. And I actually, sorry, there was a screaming child. I didn't realize I was supposed to be a student.
It's okay. Thank you. Professor Daly, do you mind going next?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So yeah, I just noticed the video reflection activity at the end. I thought that was really interesting, and that's something that should probably be in every course, at least some kind of reflection element. It doesn't have to be a video, but I think that's important. And then my other note, I think it got pushed behind.
Here, let me, oh my gosh. There we go.
Okay, so yeah, I liked the grading breakdown, the chart with all of the assignments and the grading breakdown at the beginning of the syllabus or before the weekly schedule. It's like a quick reference to see which are the most important assignments just right away. I mean, that's kind of really beneficial for students to just have a quick look and see what are the most important things that I need to do in this class.
Okay, thank you. Professor Lipo?
Well, I had a couple in there. I also like that breakdown. I know we've been trying to get back to something like that. But I really love the group discussion.
Okay, thank you. Abby?
Well, I was a student, so I found the syllabus very exciting. Something, the element that we don't have in some of our syllabus or syllabi, and it was collaborative. So it wasn't like discussion, okay, as a collaborative choice, but it's not that collaborative. The activities were actually group work and it required collaboration, and it was very comprehensive. So we have reflection, we have videos, we have written assignments. So at the end of the syllabus, everything came beautifully together. And as a student, I think if I was a student, I would just learn everything in that syllabus and everything came along very beautifully. That's my take.
Okay, thank you. Tin?
Hello. So I did it from a viewpoint of a student, and I'm putting myself as one of my current students right now, or at least try to. And the first thing that I've noticed was when working or when looking through the syllabus itself, the first couple pages to me as a student it seems very similar to other syllabuses, syllabi. And it wasn't until I saw the grade distribution breakdown where I was like, okay, there's something different about this. So the grade distribution was the first thing that stood out. Then I went looking through lower down into the syllabus, and I noticed that there was a lot more bullet points throughout. So I'm like feeling very not daunted, but I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff each week. Okay, so this might be that I need to time manage just a little bit more. And because I saw these changes, I went back to the beginning, and I actually didn't notice this until I read the first couple pages where, you know, it said the course description required text. There was no textbook. And I was like, oh, wow. If I didn't see like that big grade distribution breakdown, I actually, as a student, probably would never have read the first couple pages. But because of that, I thought that that was really, really surprising, at least in my case. So.
Okay. Thank you. Ev?
Oh, yes. I was also thinking as a student, and the first thing I realized is that there is an assignment every week that I, as a student, need to complete to get the to get a good grade. That I don't need to buy a book, and as Professor the previous professor said, that I will have to manage my time properly because there are lots of readings every week.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Nelson.
I definitely think that, you know, the no textbook is good, but again, it's a little later until you realize that. But the way the document is kind of set up, it is really something you have to be engaged with throughout the course. So it's kind of by intrinsically kind of working that way. And the things that you're going to need to kind of support your assignments, I found that I needed to refer back to it. Because since you don't have the book, you're going to need to be looking at where you're kind of going, like a map where you're heading. And then the resources and things that I would be pulling were all there. And if I had questions, obviously, I would.
We'll get to that in a sec. Thank you. Dr. Nino?
Okay, good morning. I have also a couple of points. First of all, also I didn't notice that there is a specific textbook, required textbook. It is more reading different articles or different books. It is depends on the week. The second point I noticed about the videos, the student need to just record self-video. This is very good point, that because the student can learn different skills, personal skills. And the latest one, it is about work group. So it is again, so we just encourage the student to work with team, and this is just help them to work with team in their future as well when they go to the professional life. Also, I would like to add, I didn't notice that there is a specific deadline to post their discussion or this, for example, and for comparing with the regular syllabus or courses, we have, for example, we say by Thursday, and it's clear in the syllabus that the student by Thursday, they need to post their initial post. By Sunday, they need to respond to peer. I didn't see this here mentioned. Might be if I'm a student, it's give me more opportunity or freedom to post anytime within the week if it is, I understood it correctly. And I didn't notice there is exam. So it is more activities and work. I didn't read. So this is my comments. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to move to questions. Junko, why don't you ask your question for us?
Oh, good morning. So having the experience of being able to co-teach this class with Dr. Broding, it is something that we recognized right off the bat was that we got, there's no discussion questions. I don't have to post by Sunday. And they were very, at first, flustered, I think. Like they were so, like they had this format in their mind. And so that was one of the very first questions we received. So when we explained to them that the integrated studies program and the syllabi and some of their future classes were going to look very different, we got a receptive response. Students were very excited about the idea of not having to, write a paragraph. And in this class, I have found that even without the discussion questions, the students are prepared, and that they they come with questions or they come with comments. They're very engaged in the work, and the work that they do produce is a good quality of work at the level of the class. And so it's interesting to see that they enjoy not having the discussion questions, and that they're still held accountable, and their participation is in depth and quite high.
So in terms of answering the question, I think I told the students, and I would tell Joko, I still can't, I'm never gonna let you live that down. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
It's because Dr. Chancho is a JC as well. And so we have 2 JCs.
It just reminds me so much of J-Lo. So I would say
my
there
fault.
are.
I named her that.
It is true. It is true, Professor Lipo.
God. So I would say there are some discussion question type things in certain weeks and some not in other weeks, and that we're going to go through and we're going to discuss those week by week. And it'll just take some time getting used to. Professor Lipo, it looks like you have a couple questions.
Let's see. So on as far as on the points, you have 25, 12.5, or 0. So there's nothing in between.
And that my response is yes, that is correct. So far, in terms of the grading, it's been pretty, it's worked out pretty well. And then you had another question.
I was just, there's a list of URLs. Would it be better to put the article name displayed and the URL linked to it using the hyperlink tool? That way the students can see.
Well, a lot of the articles are from Learn, so they can't just click on them necessarily and get access. So I have them embedded in the course, which is why I didn't have them as all URL links for them just to click on and access. Professor Nelson.
I was just trying to find out how do we find the feedback on the assignments? Like where would we pull that from?
That would be in through the Turnitin links, right? Like the normal grading for the CLAs and the PAs. It's set up the same way.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Professor Shudi Ojeda, and I apologize if I mispronounce your last name.
It's okay. Shay. It's okay.
Sorry.
Okay, do you want me to read my questions?
Yes, please.
So what's the deadline? I couldn't see the deadline. Students are used to having the deadline at the very first pages. And if we can work as students in groups, since there are lots to do every week, can I work in groups?
So in terms of the first one, I actually got that quite a bit. And I'm like, it's due on Sunday. And that's just how I left it. They have the deadlines are in the assignment built into the course that way. But I think moving forward, it's probably a good thing for me to include. And Dr. Nino pointed out that it's Hume 221. I think there's just, that was a typo there where I need to go in and erase Art 100. And see, what's also really nice about an activity like this is when students go through it for quality control. I'm like, oh yeah, I need to fix that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think it also shows them like we're human, and that we make mistakes and we have to clean up writing and things like that as well. And it's it's something that we all have to pay attention to. So I think it kind of humanizes it for them and makes hopefully at least a little bit makes them a little less nervous about like making a mistake. And then Professor Doe.
Again, hello. Just acting as a student, do we have to watch all those videos and read everything? Because I work and I do sports and I'm so exhausted at the end of the day that I don't have time. This is a question I actually received. So
my answer is, of course, yes, because you know, if I say no, no one's gonna do it. Or if I'm like, be selective, then they're all like, oh, we don't need to, right? And I recently encountered that with one of the video reflections. Was a student was like, I prefer to write my response. Professor Constant, this isn't in our class, it's in my other section. And I was like, I guess, like, sure. And then all the students wrote their responses. Nobody did the video. And I was like, note to self, do not say yes to that question moving forward, because they will all do it. Okay, I'm just taking notes about what I need to fix. Okay, awesome. And Professor Sorensen, I know that you have the same question, and the answer is yes, you do have to read and watch all those things. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go back to our presentation because that portion is over. Let me just get through these little thingies, and then so we had a discussion within the activity, but now that we're not acting as students anymore, what was your experience like taking part in the syllabus reconnaissance? And you can speak out loud or put your answer into the chat. Either is fine.
I think it really requires us, you know, as a student, to look really at it. Sometimes when, as I think you initially started off and stated, that the teacher just reads it, you know, sometimes in education, there's just certain habits because we're going through the process. But when we're forced to kind of look into it and then speak back at what we gain from that, there's a little stronger connection to where and how we're engaging.
Great, thank you. Dr. Mokhtari says, very engaging. Any other people who would like to share what your experience was like?
As a student, we can feel that we are part of this process, even in syllabus creation. So
yeah, Dr. Nino, that's such a great point. There's also another activity that I do that's called, you can call it kind of whatever you want, but it's like creating course ground rules. And I have students, I try to do it on the first day. Sometimes I'm not able to because the syllabus reconnaissance takes a lot of time and maybe it's week 2, but I let them know that, hey, we're going to, I'll do like a Pear Deck interactive slide in Google Slides, and I will ask them, what do you think the ground rules for our class session should be? And then they get to help set those ground rules, and then I'll merge some of them, but I'll check with them to make sure they're okay. Just because a lot of them will be like, always keep your camera on. I can't list it out like 5 times. And then I'll upload that to the course. And then, you know, if needed, we can return to it like, hey, that's not really part of our course ground rules, right? So I think the more that they feel that they are a valued person with input within the class process, that the more buy-in that they're going to have. And you're also going to be able to connect with them on a deeper level the first day of class, which makes such a big difference. Professor Daly says it is really interesting to see a new course format, and of course professors need to keep up with changes to curriculum. And yes, this is true. And like I said, I will be making some slight changes to the syllabus, you know, because there are things that need to be fixed in it, as was pointed out.
I just want to comment something. Yeah.
Yes.
In terms of my experience with the syllabus, well, because I teach the practicum, I know for sure that it will take forever to go through the syllabus. Like the first session, I cannot use only 10 minutes. It takes lots of time, especially if you go really deep into every aspect of it. It takes sometimes even the whole session. So you really need to be super careful on how you approach the syllabus so as to be to manage the time in the session properly.
That's a great point. So I'm wondering if for something like that, you know, you could have them look at like what you think are the most important parts of it. And you know, and have them do an activity like this. Like if you only have 10 minutes, like you need to look at the course learning objectives and tell me which one is the most important one and why, right? So this is where you can really tailor an activity like this to fit with your class. and fit with the needs of your students as well. So thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate that. Any other feedback to this question before we move on to the next one? Okay, if you come up with something in a little bit that you want to talk about and we didn't have a chance to, just let me know. So our last question for this part of the discussion is, what are the benefits of using such an activity in your class on the first day?
Well, I could see two benefits. From the student side, they can actually go deep into looking at the syllabus, and they can find details that maybe they won't be able to if they are reading the syllabus by themselves. And as a professor, exactly what's happening right now. Like, you have other pairs of eyes, and they have a look at the syllabus, and they can actually see mistakes that you can correct, or things that you might believe are clear, but they're not.
Awesome. Thank you. Professor Daly says students get to have input. So what are some of the other benefits?
It invests them in their class right from the start. You know, I think many times they'll jump into a class kind of maybe not knowing what to expect. And it's not until basically the assignment smacks you in the face and it's due, do we find people saying, oh, you know, this is something that I needed to pay attention to. But it gets them invested from day one so that they can begin to formulate some of those questions and be ready for the assignment.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else?
I think it's basically showing the level of engagement or buy-in that is important. I mean, it's very crucial at the beginning, at the first session, that there is a common goals, common set of expectations between the professor and the students at the same time. And it's kind of, I see it as a kind of creating a common mind mapping. We both understand the same thing. We both understand the way that we will take over the next 8 weeks or 16 weeks, and what are the deliverables from the first point. So I think it's very important, and investing time in it is worthy.
Great. Thank you so much. Professor Tarani says students gets the students wall down, and students are easier to participate in class. And, you know, I hadn't thought of it that way, that it's a good way to get them talking with you and with each other and providing input, right? Like, it really helps set that safe space and participatory space for the students. Professor Sorensen says staves off that debilitating overwhelmness that can occur. Yeah, right, because you're going through it, you're talking through it, they're asking questions, they're looking at each of the upcoming assignments, they have the chance to say, hey, this isn't super clear, can you elaborate on that for me? Yeah, and what Professor Constant said, it's a contract of expectations, and that's essentially what a syllabus is it's a contract between the instructor and the students, that these are the expectations and this is what I'm expecting you to do, from the, you know, the students being accountable, and then in terms of the instructor being accountable, like, these are the requirements, this is how I'm going to grade you, especially if the rubrics are in there. That's a really good point. Okay. So since we are getting towards the end of the hour, does anyone have any questions that are not related or that are expansions upon questions that I already asked you guys, or anything else?
Well, I would like to ask how your experience has been using this strategy in your classroom.
So this was, I learned about this as part of a year-long training program that I'm doing for a community college district that I work for. And I was like, how did I never think to do this? In the asynchronous classes that I've built myself for other schools, I have like a syllabus activity or syllabus quiz, right? But I had never, and I'd done something similar in the face-to-face classroom in terms of reading through the syllabus and then having them answer specific questions, but I had never given them control of the activity in terms of like looking at it, looking at the syllabus and coming up with their own takeaways and having their own questions. And it really gets them looking at it from a very like open-ended way without me like setting up those parameters from the get-go. And it's been super successful. The first time I did it was midway, well, in the fall. I think for Westcliff, the first time I did it was session 2. And it went incredibly well. And then I've just continued doing it. And it's been just such a positive experience for everybody. Nobody's really expressed any negativity about it, or if they did, they just kept it to themselves. So, and that was why I brought this up as a potential training topic, because I think it's been so beneficial for me as an instructor and for my students that I really wanted to share it with others.
Wonderful. And how long has it taken you to complete this?
Like in class? Is that what you mean?
Class. Yeah, exactly.
You know, it depends. It can take 20 to 25 minutes usually. Sometimes it'll take a little longer, but I feel like it's really worth it. Getting their feet wet, and it also gets them introduced to the stuff that we're going to be talking about in week 1, right? And then I can expand on that after the syllabus reconnaissance activity.
They can just ask questions. Can you save the Jamboard? Can students save the Jamboard or?
Yeah. Yes, so they have access to it through that link. And I keep all of them. So if they want access to it, they can come back to it, or they can like take a snip of it or a screenshot.
Okay.
So they can have access to it that way as well.
Okay.
And I think I've actually uploaded screenshots of it into the class or put them into the presentation, because I always upload my slides after class. So there's also that option as well to just do it for students, so they just have access to it anyways.
Would you not suggest also say, Mary, that it would be okay even if we didn't, let's say, go into the the Jamboard, but if we, you know, just went, I like to say, go through the grid. Okay, Sally, John, everyone, what are your takeaways that way? And then maybe we can write it in the whiteboard so that then we can all kind of see that list in a way of modifying it.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I actually haven't had the chance to do it in a live classroom, like in the physical classroom. It's only been online. So I think that would be how I would do it in the live classroom. It's only because of having to use virtual. So you could either write it up there, or you could have them go up one by one. Like maybe you have a group of pens, right? I mean, like not thinking about COVID times, where they can go up and they can write them down individually as well. And that even gets them more engaged, not just sitting there and having you write it down for them. Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up? Okay. So in summary, reading over the syllabus with your students on the first day of class does not necessarily engage them with the material. And a syllabus reconnaissance activity can help students engage with the material in the syllabus, identify key information, and ask questions about it that the instructor can answer. And yeah, thank you. And if you would like to present a light professional development session, please contact us at the following email address.
Thank you so much, Professor Broding. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And again, we have lots of initiatives for this 2021 at the Light Center for Professional Development Opportunities for you. So stay tuned, but we will send in more information later on. So thank you again for coming today, and let's keep in contact through the newsletter, or if you need anything from the Light Center concerning professional development, you have the light at westcliff.edu.